Well, today was my first day at the new gig, and I want to give a reaction to that before I change into some more comfortable clothing and do a workout. I want to talk about the positives I've noticed and get into some of the concerns in general that I'm seeing being back in the 40-hour work week shebang. The positives I noticed, I was initially turned off about it being a hybrid role, but a couple of people I work with they have a worse commute than I do, and they just get in early. I mean, it's 3 days a week hybrid, and you just have to badge in 3 days a week. And some people get there late, stay there for a few hours, and then go home. I hear some people literally get there, have a coffee, and turn around and go back because you don't have to badge out. You just have to badge in. And I don't know if I want to do that. I'm new, so the people I'll be working closely with, I'll try to be there the days that they're there to get whatever is supposed to be more collaborative when you're there in person. And it sounds like they're going to be there Tuesdays, Thursdays, Wednesday, and Friday. So we'll see how that goes. But that was nice to know. So I got home. I beat a lot of the traffic. Didn't beat the school traffic though. But that was a positive that I wasn't expecting. Another positive is in the finance industry, without mentioning the names of the companies, in order to have some anonymity for them and for me. The finance industry, I learned years ago before I got in it today, they tend to be very on the, I wouldn't say bleeding edge of technology, but they definitely believe in having up-to-date stuff. And it's for cybersecurity reasons, to keep things the latest and greatest type of security so things aren't end of life, but also they just work better. And that's nice. I've been in some government organizations where I'm thinking to myself, all the money that the government receives, and we have a worse performance than I've experienced in some nonprofits. I mean, not some wealthy nonprofits like churches and charities. And they had a better computing experience than I did working in some places with the federal government. Not to say that the federal government's equipment was cheap, but man, they needed some networking help. So it's good to be, back in the saddle, so to speak. Here are some of the concerns that I noticed. I saw Asian Indian people for as far as the eye could see. I really did. And it's not something I wanted to notice. I don't have a problem with Asian Indian folks, but when you're speaking with an accent, I know you weren't born and raised here. So they're not, I'm not saying they're not citizens. They could be citizens or green card holders, but when you're still sounding like you are tech support that's been offshore to India, you were not born and raised here, definitely not born and raised in Texas. And it became real noticeable when I started thinking in my head, I haven't seen a white woman here. Now, I know someone I'm going to be working with is a white woman, but she's on vacation, but still, that's one. And I looked around and I didn't see any. And the black women I saw were, up until the person who gave me my badge later in the day, all the black women that I recall seeing worked for the physical security company. They're the people you see as soon as you walk through a door. They're in physical security guards. And I saw one black gentleman, and he was one of the people helping to onboard me and get me situated with the new computer. And that's about it in terms of diversity. So, and another thing to go along with that, the money I'm making is about $10 an hour less than I was making 10 years ago. 10 years ago. And in that 10 years time, I have 10 years more experience. I also have acquired 4 different Splunk certifications, including the Splunk Enterprise Certified Architect cert. I've become Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Certified, and I've also acquired the ITIL Foundations certification, and I've kept all my Cisco certs up to date, as well as my CISSP. But 10 years later, $10 an hour less. And I think that has something to do with what I've mentioned in some of my more popular videos here regarding student and worker visa candidates. But I'm hopeful with what I hear coming from Washington. I'm not like those people who are worried about the gloom and doom about tariffs. I think, quite frankly, some companies are going to either lower their prices or they're just going to sell less stuff in America, which I don't think they want to do. I've learned that America is a premier market when it comes to consumerism. Everybody who makes something wants it to be sold in the US. And not that concerned about Canada and Mexico. With what I know, they rely more on us for trade than we do for them. And in fact, the president keeps saying it's just going to be reciprocal tariffs. So if someone doesn't like the tariff that we're charging them, then we're just reciprocating what they're charging us, so they can change and have more parity, a more equal exchange. But all in all, it was a good sunny day, not too hot, not too humid, so I could, I don't think I dress as well when it's really hot and humid. So I liked that the first day was cooler, low humidity, and I'm going to enjoy that before it gets dark and go for a little jog. But, in terms of having some more cash flow, I'm excited about that. Another benefit I forgot to mention, from a tech perspective, I will be working with Splunk, and this organization, their Splunk environment is at least 4 times larger than the biggest Splunk environment I've worked with in the past, which was the last one I worked with. And I thought that was pretty big, because whenever I mentioned the size of daily ingest to other organizations that interviewed me for jobs, they thought that was pretty big. But this organization is at least 4x, and if in some cases probably 6 times. And when you take into account that they have multiple environments that are 4 to 6 times larger, then you got to double that. So a lot to learn, opportunity to grow. Speaking of the dollar amount and how immigration might be affecting that, I do know 2 high-level engineers who are one is a contractor who's thinking about not renewing because of the money, and one is a permanent employee who's told me if things don't turn around, then he's probably going to be looking at something else. So I don't think this organization that I'm working with is hurting for money. I mean, it's finance. They specialize in knowing how to spend and earn money. And I heard years ago that banking and finance were good organizations to work with from a tech perspective, as well as for money. But that apparently doesn't seem to be the case right now. Maybe it'll change. If not, I learned from Robert Kiyosaki in Rich Dad Poor Dad, you don't take a job just because of what it pays, but for what you can learn that can be an asset going into the future. And I intend to do that. I'm not a permanent employee. I'm an hourly person. So, but anyway, long time coming. This Saturday will actually mark 1 year from the time I lost my last W-2 job. I have had a contract along the way, but that was short term. I knew that from the start. It was just a short-term gig. And in this past 52 weeks, this past year, I will have only worked 49. I will have only worked 3 out of those 52 weeks. Not something I want to duplicate. Not something that I should have to deal with. But I'm really paying attention to this golden era that the president is pitching. And it's one of the days that I'm not as in tune with what happened from a news perspective, so I'll try to catch up on some of that tonight before one of the basketball games I'll be watching. But I guess I can exhale for a little bit, because I was holding my breath for way longer than I should have. And I know I'm not alone, because I've been seeing other videos of people talking about this kind of stuff. And we are due. We are due for reparations. We are due for a change. And it's happened for me today. And I want it to happen for more folks, because this is the United States of America, doggone it. Anyway, talk to y'all on the next one. By the way, I should say this, because I haven't been saying it. Subscribe if you're new here. Please, I'd like to get to 4 digits of subscribers sometime before Christmas. Be nice to do it by 4th of July, actually. But I haven't asked for that, but maybe you can be part of that growth for me. I definitely know I've had enough viewers to get to that point. I would just like to have it reflected in the numbers. Let's try to get to 4 digits of subscribers before Christmas, preferably before 4th of July. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.